There is a question that I have heard recently that has given me some, some interest. And that question is, why have 100 million more people watch the Super Bowl than the college football national championship game? And it was interesting to me because how do you not know that? Why? It seems like the Super Bowl to me is something that's like a cultural thing in America. Like a lot of people like the Super Bowl. And the person that raised this question, I kind of think they had a blind spot where they're like so much of college football fan. And I'm a huge college football fan, but I like to call it balls and strikes to use a baseball terminology there. But it was interesting for me to like hear that question. It's like, you're a sports commentator. How do you not know why? That there's more people that want to watch the Super Bowl than the college football national championship game. And I figured that we could talk about that to start this podcast off.
Sounds good.
All right. So he was kind of confused as to like, why would 100 million more people? And I think he's dead set on this idea that like they're all football fans that watch the Super Bowl, and they're all football fans that watch the college football national championship game. But that's not the case. The Super Bowl is watched by a lot of people that don't particularly care about the game. Were you about to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, like you said, a lot of people watch the game. A lot of people watch the game for commercials, so it's a family thing. Everybody gets to have parties, and it's a social gathering that everybody loves. One thing that I don't understand is more so because I do like the main sports programs that we have. But just to flip this for a second, so I mean, what's the number one? What is the number one sport apparently in the world? Apparently, it's soccer. Now, I wouldn't know that because I don't watch soccer. I don't like soccer. I know the point is football, but that's the point that I'm making. Like, I had no idea that the number one sport in the world was like soccer.
Yeah, well, that's the point. Accessible, sport by a lot of countries, especially countries that are stricken by poverty and all that stuff. But the point that I was going to make, and I think this is a pretty other than kind of like what you were saying before, where the Super Bowl is in the cultural zeitgeist of the United States of America. You watch it not even necessarily for the game. There's a lot of people out there that watch the Super Bowl, not necessarily for the game, but for the commercials, for the halftime show, for the experience of just being there at a Super Bowl party. And it's because the Super Bowl is a part of Americana, whereas college football is a regional sport, and that's a lot of things, and that's a lot of sports. Like hockey is a regional sport; it's bigger in Minnesota and like the Rust Belt and like the Northeast, like in Vermont and Boston and all that and all those places, and with football in general, and with college football, it's in the South. It's in like Texas, Alabama, Florida. Yeah, it's huge down there. It's a religion down there, and to an extent, it's also the same way in the Rust Belt.
What's the? I believe they made movies and stuff about this. What is it, Friday Night Lights?
Friday Night Lights.
That's like I know it's high school. It's high school, correct?
It's high school.
It's like religion for those people.
It's a huge deal. And then exactly. It's high school football, but also at the same time, that's just a check down because it's a microcosm all the way down to your individual town. So you can have a high school, and you're like, oh, I hope really beat the high school that's in the town over or whatever. For college football, it's really about that particular area. So maybe you went to, or maybe you're just like a Longhorns fan, and you really want to beat the Texas A&M, Aggies. That's a part of, the dichotomy, which like you're split between these certain schools and all that stuff. And there's so many teams. Like there's 130 plus teams in major college football, and like not particularly major, but in D1 college football. In the NFL, there's only 32 teams, I believe. So you're only down to, and some states don't even have teams. So like if you are like, the more curious one is that in Alaska, like the team is the Seattle Seahawks because it's the closest one to the area.
Who's got what is North Dakota and South Dakota? Who do they root for?
I've seen these maps so many times.
For pro, I mean,
Yeah, I think it shifts depending on who's good. But you got me on that.
Yeah,
one,
yeah. I
buddy.
was just curious if you knew.
Yeah, no, because I've noticed the Alaska one. Hawaii, was it the 49ers? I'm speaking out of my ass on that one.
Yeah.
But yes, in my opinion, if you have that question and if you don't really understand why someone wouldn't watch the college football national championship game but would watch the Super Bowl, then I don't think you really understand the cultural significance of the Super Bowl. Now, you can ask the question, how can college football do that? But that's a really heavy question because of the difference in the amount of teams in both of those sports. So, I mean, in those levels of the same sport. So like 130 teams. How am I supposed to care as a Navy fan if Notre Dame and Ohio State are playing in the national championship game? It's the same basic principle of, like, why did 22 around that area million people watch the national championship game in college football? Well, it's Notre Dame and Ohio State. That's one particular area. That's that Rust Belt area of the country. Does Alabama care? Does Florida care? Does Texas care? That's not any of those teams. And it's also not capturing the major metropolitan areas in this country, because the Northeast, where we live, doesn't really give a shit about college football. Chicago could care about college football, but it's kind of in between a whole lot of major programs like Notre Dame, like Ohio State, like Minnesota, like a bunch of programs that are up there. And then LA only really gives a shit about college football if USC is good, and USC was not good.
Yeah.
So run into a situation where the major metropolitan areas will always lean towards the NFL, and all points in between, honestly, because 122 something million people watch the Super Bowl for the experience. But you're talking about college football that is not necessarily a national experience.
I would say that I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but I would say Penn State probably would be somewhere in our area, because I know a lot of people from our area do go to school there. So I would assume that Penn State would probably be fit into the what you said before about our area.
But Penn State is also a part of that because it's, in the middle of Pennsylvania. So it's in that Rust Belt area.
I would assume that Syracuse probably fits into that as well. Same.
The interesting thing about that, though, is that Notre Dame has a large imprint in our area. They're called Subway alums. A lot of people who did not necessarily go to Notre Dame, but they root for Notre Dame because Notre Dame has always had that contract with NBC. So they were always on nationally. I remember when I was a kid, being a Navy fan, I only got access to 2 games. It was the Army-Navy game, which is always telecast on either ABC or CBS or something like that, and then the NBC game, which would be, because NBC carried the home games, I believe, for Notre Dame, Navy and Notre Dame if it was at South Bend. So when you're on a national TV channel like that, like NBC, you have a lot of people in this area that became Notre Dame fans. So even this area that has a strong inclination for Notre Dame, and they were in the national championship game, still didn't turn out for that game. So that's actually kind of more of an indictment on, and I'm a college football fan. I will always admit I love college football more than the NFL. It's an indictment on college football in its regionality. Like, why would you want to watch the college football playoff? Like, unless you're a nerd like me and you want to watch college football all the fucking time.
I mean, you're sorry, excuse me. You're right. But I think why one of the reasons why I think people don't is because watching like, let's say, the NFL for years, you get to know your players, you know who they are. Whenever you're watching college, like, you only see your players for, I don't know, let's say 4 years. If you have 4 years.
Yeah, you used to have 4 years of those players, maybe 3, because you traditionally didn't play as a freshman.
Good players going to leave in 2.
And that brings us to that whole NIL discussion that we were kind of in. Now that, like, you've had with NIL and with the transfer portal, you kind of have unlimited cap, not even a salary cap, it's just unlimited spending and unlimited free agency in college football. So, like, you think you have a good player, And then all of a sudden he's like, all right, well, I'm going to Alabama. It's like Army had a, what's his name? Kanye Odo? He had a, whoever. I'm
Kanye. You said Kanye. It's him.
Yeah, it's Kanye Adaubo or whatever his name was. But he went from Army, which has its own kind of like the service academies have their own kind of like regulations of what you can and can't do. Like after your sophomore year, if you want to leave the academy, you have to actually pay back the money.
Wow.
Yeah. Because you're it's not free to go to the service academy, so you have to pay back what you owe them, because it was supposed to be essentially a free ride, and then you go there and then you serve 6-7 years in one of the services. And with this though, with NIL and all that stuff, it's like, all right, well, I can just leave and potentially pay you back anyway. And people just jump from Army, Navy, Air Force just like that.
Are each one of those? So if you enter the Navy, you owe that this much money. If you leave, does it get transferred to like the Army where you owe the same amount, or do you have any idea? I'm just curious. I didn't know this was a thing.
It's a thing. I don't know if it's the same amount, because both of those, all three of the academies
Services.
have their own their own freaking little things, because like sometimes Navy's a little bit more they're a little bit more harsh than Army. Sometimes Army's a little bit more harsh than Navy. Sometimes Air Force is harsher than both of them. But you kind of it just depends. I guess on that situation where like it depends on like the superintendent who's just trying to like lay the hammer down. It's like, no, you can't leave.
I did not know that was a thing. I mean, that makes sense though. I mean, especially so. I mean, like obviously you're signing up to do a not a tour, but you're signing up for your service for your country.
Well, yeah, you're signing up, but you're also signing up to be an officer in one of the military, one of those branches of the military, and so they kind of want you to like, hey, you're not here to be a football player. So, but that's probably the most extreme of those examples where it's just like, but if you're if you're like, we talked about this briefly, he declared for the NFL draft since then, but like Quinn Ewers was rumored to be getting a $6 million package from Notre Dame, and then that didn't happen. He declared for the NFL draft and all that stuff. But if you can just get a certain amount of money, and you're like, hey, if you leave Texas, you can come here to Notre Dame, be our starting quarterback, and we'll pay you $6 million. So there's no loyalty in college football anymore. I don't know if that's exactly. I have seen comments from sports fans that kind of lean towards that, but in the generality of like in the scope of football, there's more people that care about the NFL because there's more people that live in urban areas like New York City, LA, Chicago, this, that, and the other thing, and they all have teams. And in almost all of those cases, except for Chicago, they have multiple, football teams. So you're already kind of like in the scope of it. And also, I think another interesting point of this too is that why does the NFL get better ratings in general than college football? It's like you can predict when your team is on. If you don't even pay attention to when the schedule is, it's like, well, they're either on at 1, 4, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday. And if you're wrong, they're either on a Thursday or a Monday.
So one thing that I was going to say before is that, and you kind of brought it up again. So with the Super Bowl, I know when I was a kid, and I'm sure this happens in every household, probably with college for people back, like let's say in Texas, or all those big gamers that really love college. I know whenever I was a kid, I'm sure this happened with you. I know another friend, same thing. When we were kids, like when the Super Bowl was on, we were going with the family to our friend's house, to their friend's house. They were having a big old party. I remember a kid watching all the Super Bowls, and not even watching the Super Bowls, going downstairs and playing Tecmo Super Bowl while our families were sitting down watching the game. But that probably happens with college, but you just don't know it because we don't do that. Well, I never really did that.
Well, we don't do that in the Northeast because it's in the same vein where the Super Bowl is an event.
Yep.
College football
it's like a holiday.
national championship game, first of all, is kind of new. It's been within the last 20 to 30 years that they even had a national championship game to begin with. So it's kind of like, it's unfair to college football to even compare the two. It's like, why are 122 million people watching the Super Bowl, which, as we've already established, is a cultural thing in the United States? It's not even, and also it's a global thing. I didn't even bring up that. It's like it's on in multiple fucking countries. But even if it's 122 million people in just the United States of America, if we just leave it at that, it is a part of Americana to watch the Super Bowl, even if you don't care. Even if you just want both of those, even if you want a meteor to hit the fucking stadium, you're still watching the Super Bowl because there's nothing else on.
That's how I felt about this one.
Yeah,
honestly.
And honestly, like at halftime, I think the Chiefs wanted that meteor to hit too. That was not a good Super Bowl. But even that can even be the thing. Like, I remember watching that Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Chiefs, and the Eagles were just absolutely drumming them. And I'm like, the college football national championship game was a better game. And that was kind of like, it wasn't a blowout, but it was like Ohio State took control and just kind of like bloodlet the game out. And like Notre Dame tried to march back and make it into a game, and they did a better job of the Chiefs doing it. But also at the same time, it's comparing, it's not apples and oranges because it's the same sport, but it's like one sport has been trying to get into the zeitgeist, but it's too regional to get into the zeitgeist. Whereas the Super Bowl has already been established for, like, when was that established? Like 1968, right off the top of my head, I want to say.
I would say a little earlier than that, but...
Yeah, it's probably right.
Yeah, but yeah.
I think you agree with some of my points. Do you think I'm off base on anything? Like, why do so many people watch the Super Bowl? And why don't they watch the college football national championship game?
I'm not really sure how exactly to explain that. Like I said, I feel like it's been kind of not pushed on people, but like it's kind of like American pastime type thing, like how baseball is like America's pastime, but like the Super Bowl is kind of like that. It's that.
The NFL is America's pastime now. It really is.
It really is. Sundays are for football.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, Saturdays in my mind are not for football, but that doesn't mean that they're not.
Yeah.
It's just to me, but college, like we just discussed, college just doesn't seem like it has the uproar and the reach, because it just doesn't. And also, and then the point that I'm trying to make is more so like, maybe it has to do with the fact that, like, it is college players, even though they are getting a lot better, what it seems like. But you're only seeing your players for so long, and then they get to go wherever they want. To me, I don't know. I'm not sure if I have the answer to that, which is it's a tough question. But it just seems like the Super Bowl has always been there. It's like old reliable, I guess, if you will. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to say it.
But like, I think the best way to phrase it is that the Super Bowl is not for football fans.
Yeah.
It can be for some football fans. Like, you can hear like Bill Burr, who I'm pretty sure you enjoy some of his comedy. Yeah. I do as well. But like, he won't go to Super Bowl parties because Super Bowl parties are not about the game.
True.
Like, we were talking off mic, and you were like, I just want to watch the rest of this game and not be disturbed. I watched the game, and it was really at a different place in the second half, and it was pretty. It was a quieter environment, as I'll say. But
I just wanted a little bit more out of it. That's how I felt whenever I decided to change up my scenario whenever I was watching the game. I just wanted to see if I could get a little bit more out of this game.
Yeah.
And that's what I decided to do. And I feel like I did, even though the game was a blowout.
Yeah.
But what were you saying?
But that's even the thing. Like, I'll change up what I was about to say, because that's the thing about the Super Bowl. Doesn't matter if it's a blowout.
Yeah.
No one cares.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being a kid, and it was the 1994-1995 Super Bowl between the San Diego Chargers and the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
It was the first and only Super Bowl that Steve Young won as the quarterback of the 49ers. That was an absolute drubbing. And I watched that game. I watched that game too. And at halftime, I was like, screw this game. And I turned on my little Game Gear and started playing Sonic because I was just like, this game's over. And I was just like, I watched the Chargers beat my Dolphins on a heartbreaking field goal that Pete Stoyanovich missed. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'm here. All of my aunts and my uncles are here. Like, we're having a party. And I'm like, I don't care about this game anymore. There's nothing for me to do. Yeah, Sega. And that is the thing that drives all of, like, if you don't understand that the Super Bowl isn't actually about football,
It's a gathering.
Should you be commenting on sports? Do you understand culture? Do you understand sports? It's not about the game. We were having a whole conversation with your lady about the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar and how the NFL is such a corporate entity that it can draw in some people with the game, you and I. It can draw some people in with the commercials, drawing like the nerds, like, oh, they're going to do like a they did it the first commercial, the trailer for the next Jurassic World movie. I'm sure no one is excited about it.
Oh, it's like a remake or something, right? A reboot, I believe.
Yeah, because now they got Scarlett Johansson in it instead of Chris Pratt. And then you bring in the halftime show, and that draws in another group of people. So it's not so much about the game. I know I keep saying it, but it's the driving point of the thesis. If you are wondering why people watch the Super Bowl and don't watch college football, one is an event. It's a part of the calendar. It's so much of a part of the zeitgeist that people want the day after to be a holiday or to move the game to be, the Sunday before President's Day. No one is petitioning that for college football.
True. Honestly, if they kept college football like the championship game, and the hoopla finally started getting up a little higher for it.
Yeah.
If they kept that on a Saturday, I think a lot more people would watch it, because Sunday fucking Super Bowl at like 6:00 starting at like 6:45 is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Everyone has work on Monday.
Yeah. I that's an important part of it too. But I had this discussion with a lot of people at the party that you threw for the Super Bowl, and the reason I believe that they do it, and I think this is the actual reason, but it's me spitballing. Game starts at 6:45 because of the time differences. So it's like 3:45 on the West Coast, and I think that's a 5-hour difference with Hawaii. So you want Hawaii to watch. You want Alaska to watch. The rest of the world, screw them.
What's it like watching the Super Bowl at like 1:00 on the Pacific Coast?
Oh, I'm sure it's
that was
blast.
I don't know.
Hawaii?
You're right.
Oh my goodness gracious! That's
honestly,
first
I thought it was going to suck, but then again, you're watching the Super Bowl at 1:00 in the afternoon. Like, I think that would be kind of cool.
That would be probably the best. Now I want to go to go to a Super Bowl.
I've actually never thought about it until right now.
Yeah.
But maybe we watch the Super Bowl in California next year.
Yeah. Well, that's 3:00. So we go to Hawaii for the 1:00 start time.
I'm fine with 3:00, Dan.
But you're sober by the time it's time to go to sleep, and you're not hungover in the morning.
This sounds very nice.
Yeah. And if anybody from Hawaii or Alaska watches this, please let us know how it goes in your states.
Yeah, help us.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a lot better. Or do you just get drunker? Or do you not care about the Super Bowl because you're farther away?
Actually, I have a friend who used to live in Alaska. I'm curious how he used to watch the Super Bowl. I got to ask him. My friend Dante. Sorry, Dante, I shouted you out there, but I need to know.
Yeah, now you can do some investigative journalism there.
Now we're talking about it. I'm really curious about this.
All right, so I think we've kind of, unless you have anything else to add, Justin?
No, I think I hit my points more so about, it's an event. It's an event that it's a gathering. It's almost like a holiday, which is weird, but it's a Super Bowl because you can't do that for the World Series because there's multiple games.
Yes.
That's another point. And like I said, with college, it's more so like it's dedication. I feel like college is more dedication. The Super Bowl is just, all right, fuck it, we're winging it here. We're doing it.
That's actually a good point, too, because you can be a fan of an NFL team and have no affiliation, really, other than that's what I like. I'm a Dolphins fan. I've been to Miami once. What is my affiliation to that team? I like their colors. I like that fact that, like, Dan Marino was the quarterback, and he was good back when I was a kid. There's no affiliation to that. You can not have that. Most of the time, if you're a college football fan, you went to that school or...
Amamato. What is that? The Amamato?
Alma mater.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I couldn't say it.
Yeah. No worries. I couldn't say a bunch of things at the beginning of this podcast as well. But yeah, it's because it's more tribal to be in college football because if you went to, let's say, Notre Dame,
You're bleeding Notre Dame blood.
bleeding freaking green and gold. That is a part of your, your essence. You went there as a young man or woman and grew up in that school. You didn't grow like you could theoretically grow up being a Dolphins fan, Jets fan, Giants fan, Bills fan, whatever. But you picked that team because either it was grafted onto you because you grew up in the area, like in our area, be Jets or Giants or Eagles, or you were like me. And I'm like, that guy is really good. I'm going to root for him. And then you're a Dolphins fan. You regret all of your life's decisions for 40 years.
So Super Bowl definitely comes down to we'll call it. I guess we'll use the first one: family, fun. It's almost like a holiday.
Festivities.
A lot of good food usually. You're drinking. The other thing is now that gambling is kind of legal mostly. There's definitely a lot of gambling. A lot of gambling happening at Super Bowl.
The micro gambling that happens in the Super Bowl.
Yes, a lot of people have let's call it skin in the game.
Yeah,
and skin in the game is fun, and that's why people watch. But I would love to see people do that. I would do it. For a college game, I would put a little skin in the game if it could.
But also at the same time, I think you can still do that with college football because if you can micro gamble on the Super Bowl, it's that difference between this is a slice of this country, of this culture. Whereas the national championship game in college football, it's new, it doesn't have the legs, it's not as established, and that's kind of like the end of it. You can get like a trailer or two for the national championship game, but it's happening on a Monday night, as you've already established. If it was on a Saturday night, infinitely better. But also at the same time, if you're on, I have my own grievances with Saturday night sporting events because the way that I put it to pretty much anybody that I'm not ashamed to say this to, 100% of the population on Saturday nights they're trying to get laid or they're actively getting laid. So I think that's if you go for Monday nights, it's we'll get more viewership because people are home.
Yeah, that's valid.
So I think it would be, if you could try to, and you can't, if you're college football, you can't slither your way into Sundays. And then you only have so much time too, because when we were at a local bar and I wanted to watch, what was it? The first round of the college football playoff. And I think the first game was SMU and Penn State. But there was NFL games on at the same time. Well, what do you think is going to happen, especially in this area?
Oh, the playoff time, yeah. Yep.
You're gonna get decked by the NFL because it's an entity that I forget what movie it came from, but it's this is an entity that beat the church on Sundays. Do you not think that they've got power?